The role of the board in the age of digital transformation. Technology adoption has driven massive change for all organizations. Today's boards must steer their organizations through digital transformation and support their management team who are facing great opportunities and massive threats. Welcome to the Better Boards podcast series. In this episode, I'm delighted to talk with Lisa Harrington about the role of the board in the age of digital transformation. I'm Dr. Sabine Demkowski, founder and managing partner of Better Boards. We make the boards of the most ambitious organizations more effective. Our mission at Better Boards is to contribute to creating better boards. We do this by providing clients with an evidence-based approach for board evaluations and board development programs. To fulfill our mission, we give a voice to all who care about creating better boards. Lisa, thank you so much for contributing to the Better Boards podcast series.
Oh, great to be here. Thanks, Sabine.
So let's jump straight in. What does digital transformation actually mean?
Well, it's a kind of outdated phrase, I think. In fact, I think people feel it's a technology app or it's a digital device. But really, transformation means changing your whole business model to be fit for the future. And that's usually powered by data analytics, by faster product development, and by a shift in culture as well. So it's a big transformation and it's something for the long term.
Lots of talks about the pace of change initiated through COVID. What's your view on it?
I was working with a company just as COVID transformation moving learning from face-to-face classroom-based to digital. And I think I saw an acceleration of maybe 3 years in 3 months. Things that people had said no to previously suddenly was acceptable. The culture shifted. Everybody really wanted to make digital successful. So I think it's been absolutely phenomenal, Sabine. And I think just seeing how customers have got used to doing things digitally, it'll be very unusual to see anything go backwards.
So what role should a board really play in this whole process?
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing is for me is leadership. So it's really in the same category as ESG. I do acknowledge they're very different topics and different responsibilities. Digital transformation is led by the board and it's for everybody. So that would be my absolute starting point, is leading in how important assessing your digital model is for the future.
So, I mean, when you lead, you need to understand what you lead.
Yes.
You know, and when we do these board evaluations, I very often find when I look at the composition of the boards, the composition is not necessarily aligned fully at the moment with the strategy organizations formulate, i.e. there are gaps. And very often the gap is exactly what we are talking about in the field of digital know-how.
Yeah, you're spot on. I totally agree with you. And I would say almost every board might have a digital gap. I'm on the board of the Post Office in the UK, very much to sit in that digital seat, and all credit to the Post Office, who would be a more traditional, maybe a legacy could be another word that we would use, organization. But, I was appointed 1.5 years ago, very much with digital in mind. And I think you have got to find somebody who has digital experience and know-how, even if it means taking a less obvious generation, so somebody in their 30s or 40s that maybe doesn't have general management experience, but can bring a different perspective on digital.
I mean, it's a problem a lot of boards face. What's your tip? Where can they find this talent?
Yeah, I mean, I personally love going to a lot of the angel investment kind of meetings that there are. Certainly in London, there are angel sessions all the time. You get to meet some really interesting, what I would call born digital entrepreneurs, often digital organizations, some of the, the Facebooks and Amazons and into, Netflix, that world. And actually, they're often very happy to expose themselves to a more traditional organization because they're going to learn as well. And it works both ways. So I'd start somewhere like there.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. But, I think what I've always found is it's a little bit like reverse mentoring. If you give somebody the time, they'll often give you the time back. My last business, again, tech-born native, cloud-native business. And actually, the founder, who was in his 30s, I learned as much from him, I think, as hopefully he learned from me, because we both had complete different skills and a different perspective on business.
So with all this in mind, what's really the best way to start this digital transformation at board level? Where should boards start? Given you mentioned ESG, there is an awful lot on the plate of any board member at the moment. So what's the best way to start this digital transformation?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I don't think it's optional. I can't think of any business that won't or isn't already impacted by a shift in business models from a competition perspective. It's marketing or understanding customers through data. There's no one that will be untouched. We've talked a bit about trying to get the right skills on the board. I think the board to educate themselves, and I think a little bit like most people are educating themselves on ESG, get some great guests in, invite businesses, go and see their businesses if that's possible in COVID, because I think those things will give the board confidence.
What's in your view really the hardest part for boards, particularly of legacy companies, of this digital transformation process?
There are two. The first one is what I call culture. So it's just really rallying everybody believing that they need to change and believing that they can change, because you're going to have to re-educate and retrain maybe your staff. And I think that's really difficult, particularly when there's a lack of talent. But the second one is cannibalization, because often for legacy businesses, it means possibly destroying or eroding a successful model that they have, albeit in decline, and replacing it. And that's where the board comes in again, because they've got to look mid-term, long-term at the business model, not just short-term.
Can you maybe give an example? You have a wealth of experience, particularly in the digital transformation processes. Can you give maybe a couple of positive examples of what organizations have done to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I think about the tech education business that I worked in, we were 100% face-to-face in how we delivered our learning. Now, what we did there was we did some very rapid customer design work. We looked at how we might offer blended learning options instead. We then made ourselves very aware of what the business model would be, how long it would take to pay back, trying to build a platform. We actually bought a company to really reinvent ourselves and rebuild our offering around it. So we shifted from people coming into a classroom, meeting a teacher face-to-face to learn technical skills, being in the classroom, but then also reinforcing learning virtually, having virtual labs. And that was a big shift for us, because not least our teachers actually were quite resistant to delivering learning online. And we laugh at that now because it's so normal post-COVID. Yeah. But actually it was the biggest resistance was cultural, because people didn't believe that students would be open to learning online, which of course they are. So finding the sweet spot, we really understood that people wanted both. They didn't want one or the other, and they were willing to actually pay. Our business model would work if we could really reinforce and make that customer experience very consistent and rewarding for the teachers as well, because they now quite like the optionality. We can work around the world, we can expand into markets that we weren't in, and because we had flexibility to work in, not 9 to 5 ways. It started and it was quite daunting, to be honest. So, yeah.
No, that's a brilliant example.
Yeah, but other ones as well. I mean, the post office is, again, a very traditional business, the life of the community, and we pride ourselves on being in every community. But we realize we've also got to offer products at home and like book a package or something. Then they'll have to come in to physically give us that package, because there's no other way to get around it. So again, we've just really got to think of beautiful customer-led journeys that maybe start and finish in different places.
You mentioned culture. I'm intrigued by it, because I know from my past life as a consultant how hard it is to change the culture of an organization and how long it can take. At the same time, we do not have the luxury of time at present. So any tips? What makes a difference? How can you spark that a culture is really changing?
Yeah, I mean, where I've seen most success is, I do think hiring, that's my first observation. I think the second thing is obviously then getting some fast successes, some quick wins that people believe that things can change and there is a different way to do business successfully is good. Trying things, being innovative, being creative, and just creating that energy for people. And I think that is all part of the digital culture and the digital mindset.
What are the top 3 things our listeners should take away from this podcast?
I think I really only have one. It's absolutely not the job of the CIO or CTO. And if you're starting a digital transformation, just, get in there, get the skills at your table, make sure that you're educating yourselves as a board, and make sure you're absolutely that voice of midterm business model for your executives. And start. But, the elephant is a huge elephant, but you've got to start to eat it somewhere. Have that confidence and give your exec team the confidence to reinvent themselves, or otherwise their competitors will eat your lunch.
Fantastic, Lisa. On that cheerful note, thank you so much for contributing to the Better Boards podcast series.
Great to speak to you. Thank you.
How can we help you and your board? We at Better Boards are always delighted to hear from you. You can best reach us at info@better-boards.com.